What if a famous pianist's cruel joke unleashed a hidden talent so powerful it changed 2 lives and shocked the entire world? Asked ChatGPT. The ballroom of the Grand Seraph Hotel sparkled with gold lights, crystal chandeliers, and the clinking sound of wine glasses. The evening was special, a charity gala for a famous art foundation. Wealthy businessmen, celebrities, and elite guests. Inexpensive clothes filled the room. Waiters moved carefully, serving tiny dishes on silver trays. The soft sound of classical music floated in the air as everyone talked, laughed, and showed off their importance. On stage sat Victor Endel, one of the most famous pianists in the world. People called him a genius. His fingers moved across the piano keys like magic, and his music often brought people to tears. But behind the fame, Victor had developed something else. He believed no one could come close to his talent, and he treated those who didn't play music like they were beneath him. Victor was in the middle of his second performance for the night. He played difficult classical pieces with a proud smile. He didn't just play for the love of music anymore, he played to show people how great he was. The audience clapped and cheered after every piece, and Victor soaked in the praise. He loved being the center of attention, the most important man in the room. After his third piece, Victor stood and bowed deeply. The applause echoed around him. He stepped off the stage to rest for a while, walking confidently through the crowd. Guests greeted him like he was royalty. But Victor was bored. Praise no longer excited him like before. He wanted something new, some way to feel powerful again. Then he saw her. She was standing near the far corner, dressed in a plain black uniform. A simple woman, holding a tray with empty glasses. Her name tag said Emma. She wasn't part of the rich crowd, just one of the hotel staff, cleaning up quietly without making a sound. She didn't wear makeup or fancy jewelry. Her hair was tied back in a low ponytail. To Victor, she looked invisible, unimportant, a nobody, a mischievous idea came to his mind. He nudged a fellow guest beside him and whispered something with a chuckle. The guests laughed too. Victor then raised his voice and said, "Excuse me, young lady. Would you like to play a piece on the piano?" The people around turned their heads, surprised. Emma looked up in confusion, unsure if he was talking to her. Double quotes, "Yes." "You," Victor said with a smile that wasn't kind. "Come on, don't be shy. Let's see what kind of music you can make." Laughter rose among the crowd. Many assumed he was joking. A world-famous pianist inviting a hotel maid to play on the grand stage? It was clearly a joke to humiliate her. Emma blinked, her hands tightening around the tray she was holding. She glanced around. Everyone was watching. Some guests laughed behind their wine glasses. Others whispered, waiting to see her embarrassed. Victor stood beside the stage now, holding his hand out like a host. "Just a few notes? Show us what you've got." Emma stood still for a moment. Most people expected her to shake her head, blush, and walk away, but she didn't. She walked slowly toward the stage. The laughter faded slightly. A few chuckles still came from the corners of the room. But the tone was different, now more confused than amused. Emma placed the tray on a nearby table and stepped up onto the stage. She looked small against the large black grand piano and the spotlight that now pointed at her. Victor, clearly amused, gave a little bow and stepped aside to give her the seat. She sat down at the piano. Taking a deep breath, Victor crossed his arms and smirked. "Let's hear something." The ballroom was silent now. No one was laughing anymore. People were curious. What was she going to do? Emma placed her fingers on the keys. They shook slightly. Her heart pounded in her chest. But then she closed her eyes, and the first note came. It was soft, gentle, like the sound of morning rain. Then the next notes followed, smoother, deeper, richer. The music grew like a flower blooming. In less than 10 seconds, the room changed. Glasses froze halfway to lips. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Everyone turned toward the stage, faces frozen in shock. The melody she played wasn't loud or flashy. It was simple but full of feeling. It spoke of sorrow and hope, of beauty and struggle. The kind of music that touches something deep inside your chest and makes you feel something real. Victor stood still, staring at the keys under her fingers. The smirk on his face faded. His jaw tightened. His eyes didn't blink. He had expected awkward tapping, maybe a clumsy version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Instead, he was hearing something pure, something real. Emma's hands moved gracefully, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't playing for the crowd. She was telling a story, one that only music could explain. A few people in the crowd had tears in their eyes. One older woman covered her mouth. A man in the front row whispered, "My God," when Emma finished. Her hands paused in the air for a moment before she gently lifted them off the keys. Silence hung in the room. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. Then another, and another. Soon, the entire ballroom was filled with applause, not polite clapping, but the kind of clapping that came from shock, from emotion, from respect. Emma stood up, nodded once, and stepped off the stage. She walked back to her corner quietly, not expecting anything. She picked up her tray and stood by the wall just as before, but nothing was the same anymore. Victor remained standing near the stage. He felt like he had been punched in the chest. He didn't know what to say. All eyes turned to him now, with admiration, but with curiosity. Some even looked at him with judgment. He had made a joke out of someone. But instead of her falling down, she had flown high. Higher than him. Guests began whispering, "Who is she? What? Where did she learn to play like that?" That was more powerful than anything Victor played tonight. For the first time in many years, Victor felt small. The applause eventually faded, and the music returned from the speakers, but the atmosphere had changed. People still walked around and chatted, but now there was one name being whispered from one guest to another, Emma. No one could forget what they had just seen, and neither could Victor. He walked back to his private table, sat down slowly, and stared at the glass in front of him. He wasn't thinking about himself, or his next concert, or his awards. He was thinking about the quiet woman who had just reminded him what real music sounded like. And somewhere deep inside, Victor realized he had just been taught a lesson he would never forget. Emma stood silently near the edge of the room again, holding her tray like nothing had happened. But something had changed. Clapping had faded, the music from the speakers was back, and people were talking again, but all their eyes kept going back to her. No one looked at her the way they did before. No one saw her as just a maid now. She had gone up on that stage, sat in front of a grand piano, and played something so deep, so emotional, that even the most important guests couldn't forget it. She didn't smile or look proud. Her face was calm, her eyes lowered like someone who had done what they had to do, not to impress, but to express something hidden inside. She quietly picked up a few empty glasses from a nearby table and went back to her duties. But the crowd was no longer the same. They were whispering, not about Victor's earlier performance or the food or the fashion, but about her. Some called her a mystery. Others asked if she had any albums. A few wondered if she was a plant, maybe a surprise guest, hidden talent meant to impress the donors. The hotel staff knew the truth. Emma had worked at the Grand Sarah for 3 years. She came early, left late, never spoke much, and always did her job well. No one had ever seen her near the piano. No one had ever guessed she had music inside her. She had never told anyone, and that made it even more shocking. Victor Andel sat in the VIP corner, sipping his drink slowly. He didn't look up. Didn't talk. His fingers tapped the edge of the glass, but not in rhythm, just nervous, unsure. He had been the star of the night. Now people had forgotten him. His joke had backfired in a way he couldn't have imagined. He thought bringing her on stage would make people laugh. Instead, it made them cry. He glanced at Emma. She didn't even look his way. It hit him harder than any insult could. One of the guests, a well-known music critic named Walter Dresden, stood and walked toward the hotel manager. He looked serious. "Who is she?" he asked. The manager still stunned himself, just said, "Emma. She works here. She's just staff." Walter shook his head. That wasn't staff-level talent. That was soul-level. Soon more people came asking. A woman from a classical radio station wanted her contact. A man from a music school said he had to meet her. They all gathered around the hotel's event coordinator, who looked confused and overwhelmed. In the corner, Emma noticed the small crowd starting to form, pointing in her direction. She lowered her head, trying to focus on her work. She wasn't used to attention her whole life. She had stayed in the background, quiet, invisible. That was safer. But now the spotlight had found her, even though she hadn't asked for it. One of the guests finally approached her gently. "Excuse me," he said. "That was incredible. Where did you learn to play like that?" Emma gave a polite nod. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. "I used to play, a long time ago." "Are you a professional?" he asked. "No, sir." "I'm not," she replied. "I just learned as a child." He smiled kindly. "Well, the world deserves to hear you again." Emma nodded but didn't say more. She picked up her tray and walked toward the kitchen to avoid more attention. Inside the kitchen, other staff members stared at her like they didn't recognize her. One whispered, "That was you out there." She gave a small shrug. "Yes, but why didn't you ever say you could play like that?" Emma looked down at the floor. "Because it doesn't matter now. It was another life." Later that night, after the gala ended and the guests began to leave, Victor stayed behind. He sat in the empty ballroom. The lights dimmed, the room now quiet. The piano sat there, closed and silent, just like before. He walked over to it, sat on the bench, and touched the keys. He tried to play something, but it didn't sound the same. For years, Victor had practiced perfection. Every note had to be exact. Every performance had to be grand. But tonight, Emma had played with emotion he hadn't felt in years. Her melody wasn't about skill, it was about life. She had played like the music was her voice, and that voice had silenced him. He sighed and closed the piano lid again. For the first time, he didn't feel like the greatest musician in the room. The next day, a video clip of Emma's performance appeared online. Someone at the gala had recorded it on their phone. They posted it with the caption, "Unknown hotel maid steals the spotlight from a world-famous pianist." The video spread quickly. People on social media were stunned. Comments poured in. "Who is she? This made me cry. That was pure feeling. You can't teach that." Even famous musicians shared it, saying they hadn't heard something so beautiful in a long time. Some people even compared her to the greats, saying she reminded them of musicians from another era. When music was about emotion, not fame, Emma didn't know about the video at first. She wasn't active online, but when she got to work that morning, she noticed the way everyone looked at her. The stares, the whispers, the way her coworkers suddenly stood straighter around her. The hotel manager called her into the office. "You've gone viral," he said, almost laughing. "Whole internet is talking about you." Emma looked confused. "What? The performance?" Someone posted it online. "Over 1 million views already." Emma froze. "I didn't mean for that to happen." The manager smiled. "Maybe not, but it happened. And now, people want to meet you. Reporters are calling. A radio station wants to interview you. Someone even offered to fly you to New York to perform." Emma's hands began to shake. "I can't. I'm not that person anymore." But the manager shook his head. "Maybe you never stopped being her." Outside the office, Victor waited. He had come early, hoping to speak to her. He knew she would never approach him first. When Emma stepped out, their eyes met for the first time since the gala. Victor stood up. "Emma," he said gently, "can I talk to you?" She hesitated but nodded. He looked nervous, his usual pride gone. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I thought I was being clever. I thought I was making a joke. But the truth is, I was rude. And wrong. Deeply wrong." Emma didn't say anything. She just listened. "I've played music all over the world," Victor continued. "But I haven't played with heart in a long time. Watching you, hearing you reminded me of something I lost. You didn't just play a song, you told a story. I was lucky to witness it." Emma finally spoke. "You didn't believe I had anything to say." "No," he admitted. "I didn't. And I'm ashamed of that." Oh. There was a long pause. I didn't mean to make people look at me, Emma said softly. I only played because it was the only thing I knew how to do when people laughed.
Yes.
What makes it even more powerful? Victor replied. He took a breath and said, would you consider playing again on a real stage? Not for show, but to share what's inside you. Emma looked unsure. Oh, why would anyone want to hear me again? Because they already do, Victor said. The world is listening now. Emma stood there, quiet. The girl who once walked through hotel halls unseen was now at a crossroads. She never expected her life to change, as she never asked for it. But now, doors she thought were locked forever had started to open. She didn't know if she was ready. But something inside her, something that had once been silent, was beginning to sing again. The world outside Emma's small life changed quickly. In just 2 days, the video of her playing piano had crossed 2 million views. It wasn't just a viral moment, it was a wave. Famous musicians tweeted about her. A music teacher from London called her the kind of soul we don't find anymore. A retired concert pianist said, she plays not with her fingers, but with her heart. News reporters called the hotel non-stop. People wanted interviews, features, magazine covers. Everyone wanted to know who the mystery maid with golden hands really was. But Emma didn't chase any of it. She kept working quietly at the hotel, still wearing the same uniform, still picking up glasses and folding napkins. Though now, whenever she walked into a room, people went silent. Some staff smiled in awe. Others looked at her like she didn't belong with them anymore. Guests whispered and stared. Some even asked for her autograph, which made her laugh awkwardly and say, I'm not anyone famous. But slowly, her story began to unfold not from her mouth, but from people who started digging. A young journalist named Aisha Patel, who worked for an online magazine, was the first one to publish her real story. She visited the hotel, waited, near the staff entrance, and politely asked Emma for a few minutes. Emma looked shy, but agreed. They sat on a bench behind the building, under a tree, where it was quiet. Aisha pressed record on her phone and said gently, tell me about your life. Not the piano. Just you. Emma took a long breath before speaking. She said she was born in a small town in the countryside. Her parents were music lovers, though not rich. Her father worked in a repair shop, and her mother cleaned houses. But they loved to sing. Her dad had a cheap old piano that he had fixed himself from broken parts. It didn't sound great, but it worked. Emma used to sit on his lap and press the keys when she was just 4 years old. Her fingers were tiny, but her touch was careful. By the time she was 6, she was playing full songs by ear. Her parents couldn't afford a teacher, but they borrowed sheet music from the local library. Emma read and practiced day and night. Her school teachers noticed. One day, a music competition was held at the district level. She entered and won against children with professional lessons. After that, a local retired pianist named Mrs. Fenton offered to teach her for free. From there, Emma grew quickly. She won more contests. People began to call her the girl with golden fingers. By the age of 15, she was offered a scholarship to a top music academy in the city. But life doesn't always move in straight lines. When Emma was 17, tragedy struck. Her parents were killed in a car crash while coming home from one of her piano recitals. Everything fell apart. She and her younger brother were left alone. She had to give up her scholarship and dreams overnight. There was no time for music anymore. Bills needed to be paid. Her brother was still in school. She took the first job she could find, working at a local diner, then later as a cleaner. At hotels, for years, Emma moved from city to city, job to job. She left the piano behind. Not because she didn't love it, but because she was afraid it would bring back the pain. Every time she touched a key, she heard her parents' voices. Every note reminded her of what she had lost. Aisha listened in silence, tears in her eyes. Emma wasn't just a maid with talent. She was a fallen star that never stopped shining even when it's buried under years of dust and pain. That interview changed everything once Aisha published Emma's story. It spread like wildfire. People didn't just admire her talent, and they respected her courage. News outlets began reporting not just about the performance, but about the journey. Emma wasn't a viral moment anymore. She was someone who had sacrificed everything for family and still carried music in her soul. Charities reached out to her. Music foundations offered her scholarships again. TV talk shows begged her to appear. Even Victor Andel, the pianist who had once made fun of her, publicly said in an interview, "Emma humbled me. I was a fool to treat her as a joke. She reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place." But Emma didn't run toward fame. She kept living simply. The hotel offered her a promotion, which she politely declined. She still wore the same old shoes and took the same bus to work. But one thing had changed her confidence. One day, a letter arrived at the hotel for her. It had no return address, only a simple logo of a musical note. Inside was an invitation. It read, "Dear Emma, we are hosting the International Music for Hope concert in Paris. Every year, we choose a musician who has touched the world in a special way. This year, that person is you. We would be honored if you would perform with Maestro Victor Andel on stage." Emma stared at the letter for a long time. Paris. International stage. Her name beside Victor's. She didn't know what to feel. She showed the letter to her younger brother. Now a university student, thanks to her years of hard work. He read it and smiled. "You gave up everything for me," he said. "Your turn. Go. Let the world hear you again." She was scared. What if she made mistakes on stage? What if people expected too much? What if her fingers trembled? But something inside her, maybe the spirit of the little girl who once played her father's broken piano, whispered, "You're ready." Emma accepted the invitation. She wrote back with one request. She wanted the concert to raise money for children who couldn't afford music education. She didn't want her performance to just entertain. She wanted it to give hope. When Victor received the news, he felt something he hadn't in years, genuine joy. He reached out to her directly. "I'm a quiet phone call," he said. "I can't believe I once mocked you. You've done what I couldn't. You've made the world feel," Emma said kindly. "We all forget sometimes why we started, but music is about heart, not ego." Victor smiled. "Would you play a duet with me in Paris? Not just side by side, but together?" Emma hesitated. "I've never played with someone before." "Then let this be the first," Victor replied. In the weeks that followed, preparations for the Paris concert began. Emma flew to France for the first time in her life. She stayed in a small, cozy guest house, far from the luxury hotels, just as she liked. Rehearsals were held in a historic music hall with golden walls and velvet curtains. Victor arrived with a humble attitude, asking Emma for her ideas, letting her lead. Slowly, they built a piece together, a mixture of his brilliance and her raw emotion. The duet was called Dawn from Silence. It began with quiet notes, like a whisper in the dark. Then came sorrow, gentle pain, the sound of someone walking through grief. But halfway through, the music lifted hope rising, light returning, a heart healing. The final part was full of joy, a celebration. A soul rediscovered, Victor told reporters. "This isn't my piece, it's hers. I'm just lucky to be part of it." Back home, the hotel staff gathered around the TV to watch the concert live stream. Emma's brother invited neighbors to their small apartment to see it on a projector. People from around the world tuned in, waiting to see the girl who had played her heart on a stage she never asked for. When the night arrived, the lights of the Paris concert hall dimmed. A hush fell over thousands of people. Then the curtain rose. Emma walked out slowly, wearing a simple black dress. No makeup, no glitter. Just her. Victor followed and bowed. They sat side by side at the piano, and then together they played. The day after the video of Emma's piano performance went viral, the world outside the Grand Serif Hotel had changed completely. No longer was Emma just a quiet hotel maid. She was becoming a symbol of talent, humility, and the power of music. But the sudden attention was overwhelming. Reporters wanted interviews, fans asked for her story, and music professionals saw her as a rising star. Despite all this, Emma stayed grounded and kept working as if nothing had changed. Quietly, cleaning tables and serving guests. She knew her life was different now, but she wasn't ready to step into the spotlight just yet. Meanwhile, Victor Andal, the famous pianist who had invited her to play as a joke, was feeling the weight of his actions. For the first time, his pride was challenged. He had mocked Emma publicly, expecting laughter and embarrassment, but instead, she had shown a depth of emotion and skill that left him speechless. He felt ashamed and guilty. Over the years, his arrogance had grown, and this moment made him realize how wrong he had been to underestimate someone so quietly talented. Victor decided he needed to apologize to Emma. He sent a message through the hotel management asking to meet her in private. Emma was surprised but agreed to meet him. They arranged to meet in a small cafe nearby, away from the noise of the hotel and the media. When they met, Victor looked different from the proud, confident man she had seen on stage. His usual smug smile was replaced with a humble expression. He began, "Emma, I want to apologize. I was wrong to challenge you as a joke. I was arrogant and unfair." Emma listened quietly, her eyes soft but cautious. Victor continued, "Your music reminded me of why I fell in love with playing the piano. I lost that somewhere along the way, and you brought it back for me. Thank you." Emma smiled gently, surprised by his honesty. "Thank you for saying that," she replied. "It was never about the joke. Music is the one thing that helped me. Through hard times, the two spoke for hours." Victor shared stories about his journey as a musician and how pressure and fame sometimes stole his joy in music. Emma talked about her childhood, her lost dreams, and how music was a language she always understood, but thought she'd never speak publicly again. As they talked, a new idea formed between them. Victor suggested, "What if we played together? Not as a joke, but as a real performance. I want to show the world what you can do." Emma hesitated. She wasn't sure if she was ready for that kind of attention. But Victor assured her, "We'll do it your way. No pressure, just music." They agreed to plan a concert, something small but meaningful. Emma wanted it to be more than a performance. She wanted it to help others who, like her, had lost opportunities or struggled to find their voice. She suggested the concert raise money for children from poor families who couldn't afford music lessons. Victor loved the idea. Music changed your life. It should change others too. Over the next weeks, Emma and Victor rehearsed together. Victor was patient and supportive, and Emma's confidence grew with every session. She discovered joy in playing again, not for survival, but for expression and connection. Their story inspired many. News outlets covered their rehearsals and plans for the concert. People followed Emma's journey from humble beginnings to a growing musician ready to share her gift. Finally, the day of the concert arrived. It was held in a beautiful hall, filled with people eager to hear the duet between the famous pianist and the once unknown hotel maid. The room was alive with excitement and curiosity. Emma walked onto the stage wearing a simple dress, trembled slightly, but she took a deep breath and sat at the piano beside Victor as they played. The music was unlike anything the audience had heard before. Victor's expert technique blended with Emma's raw emotion, creating a performance that touched every heart. The melodies rose and fell, telling stories of pain, hope, and healing. When the last note faded, the audience erupted into applause. Emma looked at Victor, and they shared a smile of triumph and friendship. After the concert, Emma was invited to speak about her experiences. She talked about the power of music to heal and connect people, and about never giving up on dreams. Even when life seems to close doors, the concert raised thousands of dollars for music programs for children, just as Emma had wished. It was the start of a new chapter in her life. Victor's attitude changed too. He became a mentor to young musicians, reminding them that humility and heart were just as important as skill. Emma and Victor's journey showed the world that true talent can be hidden anywhere, and that kindness and respect can open doors no joke ever could. The day of the big concert in Paris was filled with excitement and nerves. Emma had traveled far from her quiet life at the hotel to stand on a stage she never dreamed she would reach. The grand concert hall was magnificent, with tall ceilings, shining chandeliers, and rows of velvet seats filled with people from all over the world. Cameras flashed and reporters whispered, but Emma focused on one thing: the piano in front of her. The black grand piano gleamed under the bright stage lights, waiting to tell a story through her fingers. Victor Andel, the famous pianist who had once mocked her but later became her friend and mentor, sat beside her. His face was calm, but filled with respect for the woman next to him. They were about to perform a duet, a musical conversation between two very different lives joined together. By the same passion, the music began softly. Emma's fingers moved gently at first, like a whisper, careful and full of feeling. Victor joined in, weaving notes that danced around her melody, bringing power and grace. The audience listened in complete silence, caught in the magic of the moment. The piece they played was called Dawn from Silence. It told a story without words, the darkness of loss and struggle, the quiet hope that grows even when life feels hard, and finally the joy of healing and new beginnings. The music rose and fell like the beating of a heart, sometimes fragile, sometimes strong as they played. Emma forgot about the crowd, the cameras, and even her nerves. All she felt was the music flowing through her, like it had when she was a child at home with her parents' old piano. Victor smiled occasionally, encouraging her with a glance, but mostly he let her lead, honoring the soul behind each note she played. When the final note faded, the hall exploded with applause. People stood and cheered, moved by the beauty and emotion they had witnessed. Tears sparkled in many eyes. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mix of relief, joy, and a deep sense of belonging. After the performance, Victor spoke to the audience. "Tonight, I had the honor of playing with someone who taught me more than I ever thought I could learn about music and life," he said. Emma's story is a reminder that true greatness often hides in the quietest places. Emma stepped forward, her voice steady but soft. She thanked the audience for listening and shared her wish that music be a light for those going through difficult times. She talked about the children who cannot afford lessons and how important it is to give everyone a chance to find their own voice. The concert raised a large amount of money, all of which was donated to support music education programs for underprivileged children around the world. Emma's simple request had become a powerful movement, inspiring many to believe in second chances and the healing power of art. Back home, Emma decided not to chase fame or luxury. Instead, she opened a small community music school in her city. The school was humble, but filled with hope and joy. Children from different backgrounds came to learn, laugh, and play. Emma taught them not only how to play the piano, but also how to listen to their own hearts. Victor continued to perform worldwide, but changed the way he approached music and life. He became a mentor to young musicians, reminding them that humility and kindness are as important as talent and skill. Their friendship grew stronger, a bond built on respect, learning, shared passion. Emma's journey from a quiet hotel maid to a beloved musician showed the world that talent can be hidden in the most unexpected places. It proved that no matter how many doors close, one's true voice can never be silenced. And most importantly, it reminded everyone that music is not just notes on a page, but a language of the soul, capable of healing, inspiring, and connecting us all. Her story became a legend and inspiring tale told to young musicians everywhere, teaching them to believe in themselves, to never give up, and to always play with heart.